Okay, so a lot of stuff happened for the Tennessee Titans this week. We basically found out that Chad Brinker's in charge of everything when it comes to the Titans. We fired Rand Carthen. We kept Brian Callahan. We might be keeping Colt Anderson. And we learned that Amy Armstrong may not be the best owner. And we also played a football game this week, if y'all didn't know that. I guess that most people haven't really thought about that recently. But anyway, what's good, y'all? Welcome back to the Titans Rundown. I am your host, Micah McCamey, and we got a lot to talk about this episode. I'm barely gonna spend any time on the game with positives and negatives and stuff, because that game did not mean a thing apart from, well, the obvious thing. But still, there's a lot to dive into whenever it comes to what's been happening this week, to say the least. So let's just jump right into today's episode, starting out with, we got to talk about Week 18 for the Tennessee Titans. Okay, so here's the thing. We lost. That's true, but no big deal, quite honestly. Whenever you take a look at this game, us losing it probably means a lot of better things for this team. We get the first overall pick, potential to trade down, because now that Carthen's been fired, there's no chance in heck that Shadur Sanders wants anything to do with us, or at least that's how Coach Prime got it across in some of his tweets. So I don't think Shadur Sanders is going to be a Titan. That may be the one positive thing for me, at least, because if y'all have watched the past couple of episodes, it's been very clear. I'm not the biggest fan of Shadur Sanders, but, and again, I would have still gotten behind him if it did end up happening, and if it does still end up happening, I will get behind Shadur Sanders, even if I don't like him. I didn't like Will Levis. That was my first ever episode, though, was grading that draft class, so that's the reason that y'all probably didn't know how much I didn't like Will Levis, but before he was drafted, I really did not think it was going to work out. I thought he was going to be about what he is right now, quite honestly. Really strong-armed quarterback that really didn't do that much. So take that for what you will. But anyway, this game does not mean that much apart from the Titans secured the first overall pick. Goodness knows what they're going to do with it. They could botch it and draft Abdul Carter right there. Don't get me wrong. I really like Abdul Carter. He's my preferred choice. But revealing what I want to do with that draft position, I want to trade down and then go get Abdul Carter with like the third pick that we traded with the Giants. Have 2 first-round picks next year and have the opportunity to trade all the way up to like the top 3 or something and go get our franchise quarterback from there. Work on the rest of the team and then go get your quarterbacks. That way he's set up to succeed. Okay, so next thing, let's just be real. This team understood the assignment, right? Like, it was very obvious from the beginning. Mike Brown pushing Dameon Pierce into the end zone. Similar thing with, who else was there? It was one other thing. Oh yeah, Mason Kinsey getting dragged into the end zone by Derek Barnett. It was very obvious that this team 100% knew what they were supposed to do, and they understood how to get it done. And quite frankly, I kind of respect it. I mean, like, I feel like that we shouldn't be this prepared to tank, but hey, here we are. I mean, do I think that this was us actually trying to tank? No, I think it was just us being bad. But still, it did work. The Patriots won. Thank you, Joe Milton, for getting us the first overall pick, for now at least. But overall, really excited to see what we do with the first overall pick. Even though I know that there's a lot of nepotism. Wait, what was I thinking there? No, there's a lot of negativity in the Titans fan base right now, and most people will probably tell you we're going to botch that first pick anyway because this franchise is unstable. It's completely out of balance. It's horrible. It's just dysfunctional. That was the word I was looking for, but I just had to fill in with a couple of other words. Anyway, Week 18, we lost. That's what we needed. Now we just got to move on, and hopefully we nail the first overall pick. Now, next thing, Rand Carthen was fired by the Tennessee Titans. Y'all saw my immediate reaction to this. It actually went up on the day that I'm recording this. So, yeah, this was recorded on a Tuesday, the day before this happened. So, I mentioned a lot of positives that came from the 2024 season, and how most of them were probably because of Rand Carthen. I'll play the clip right here in black and white. So, here it is. We found out that we have a franchise left tackle. We found out that we have a franchise left guard in Peter Skronsky. We found out that we have a unit on the defensive line and Tavondre Sweat, and him and Jeffrey Simmons are going to be a great duo for the next couple of years. We saw Jarvis Brownlee Jr. show flashes of being a solid starter in the NFL for years to come. We had 3 fourth-round picks to lean back on. And we had $65 million in cap space. Anyway, so, man, there's a lot of negativity. I don't agree with this move, and I don't agree with the philosophy behind it. But we got to take a look at this. There are potentially some positives about this. So if you were looking for me to come on here and do what I did in the Tuesday video where I talked about how firing Ran Carthon may be the worst thing that this franchise has done in my lifetime, no, you're not going to get that, okay? This is going to be a positive episode, and I'm going to try and bring some light into this very dull and very grim situation for the Titans fan base, all right? So let's talk about this, okay? There are a couple of things that we gotta consider. Well, first off, let's get a little negativity out. How was this dude fired before Colt Anderson was? Like, come on, Callie, get it done. Just get rid of him, please. Okay? He is the dude that you can scapegoat for your first year and be like, oh yeah, obviously Will Levis with the turnovers and QB play overall just wasn't that good. And our special teams was really bad, and other things, but you can blame that on those two and probably buy yourself a little bit more time. So please just fire Colt Anderson and move on. But anyway, so I just need to get a little bit of that out of me because, come on. How on earth do you fire Ran Carthon before Colt Anderson ends up leaving town? I don't understand that. But anyway, first thing, okay? There is a possibility that Ran Carthon may have just been a figurehead. Now, I know that there are a lot of people that are really going to dislike me saying that. But we take a look at some of the reports that have came out after the firing and that Chad Brinker is taking over basically complete control of the Tennessee Titans. What if Ran Carthon was just the charismatic dude that was making sure that the deals did eventually get done? What if he was just some type of dude that players were attracted to come play for, and Brinker was the one that was really telling him, hey, go make those moves? What if Carthon was just a puppet for Chad Brinker is basically what I'm getting at. Now, this could be completely wrong, quite honestly. But I do see the reality where that is true. And I do understand that there is potential that Chad Brinker was really the brains behind all of this. And Ran Carthon was basically just, like I said, again, a figurehead for what we were trying to get done as a franchise. I really hope that's not true. Actually, I really hope that it is true because, it's very obvious that Chad Brinker is going to have full control over this football team. We'll talk about that in just a few minutes. If Ran Carthon was really the brains behind everything that was going on with the Titans team for the past 2 years, like going to get Tony Pollard and Calvin Ridley, like having those two amazing draft classes, by the way, which we still have to give credit. Like I said, in the 2024 positives, a lot of those positives have to do with the way we have drafted over the past couple of years. With those things in mind, I am hoping that Chad Brinker was the brains behind that and that Ran Carthon didn't have that much to do with the actual business side of this thing. Okay, and there are some ideas that could hint at maybe Ran Carthon was not the brains behind this, but we'll get to that whenever I talk about Chad Brinker. But anyway, here is one thing, okay? And this is the last thing that I'll say about Carthon being fired. There have been reports that Ran Carthon was just lazy, that he didn't have a good work ethic. Now, could these just be scapegoating and being like, oh yeah, it's all Ran Carthon's fault, nothing's on us? 100%. I am wide open to that being a possibility. I could definitely see Chad Brinker basically blaming Ran Carthon for all the decisions that he made, like the L'Jarius Sneed trade, or other things that have happened over the past couple of years, like the Lloyd Cushenberry thing, like drafting Will Levis. I could definitely see him scapegoating Ran Carthon and talking about how lazy he is. But we did get a report from Paul Kaharski, which I will pull up right now. Let me take a look at this real quick. Here we go. I have it highlighted right here. Okay. So, this is what the Kaharski article says. So, too, did Carthon's post-game routine after road games. Okay, that wasn't a good way to start out, but it basically talks about things about how he left early and whatnot. But here's what it said. Personnel people and scouts typically eat and then dive into film the game the team just played to get ahead on the Monday review. But Carthen often did what I do on my plane rides back home after games. He napped. I don't want to overread into Brinker's statement about what he's looking for in the next GM, but he said the new person will be all ball, all day. That's football centric and not relationship centric. So we really have to consider the idea that Rand Carthen was just not a good just did not have a good work ethic. This is coming from another Titans insider. This isn't coming from Chad Brinker or Amy Armstrong or heck, even Mike Keith. Love you, Mike Keith. Okay, I hope that you stay. And please, if you are watching this, because I know you have seen an episode or two by me, please come back. Don't let the Vols take you away. I mean, here's the thing. I have a Vols podcast as well, so, obviously I would still be able to hear his voice, but please just I prefer you as the voice of the Tennessee Titans. Just please don't go. Getting that out of the way. These people, again, as much as I love Mike Keith, would tell you that these allegations are 100% true and 100% obvious. A Titans insider, which we have been able to hear specifically from specifically from Buck Rising, they don't really get treated that well as insiders, which I absolutely hate, and I think that's horrible. But we have heard from somebody like Buck Rising, again, that they don't get treated well, but we did hear from Paul Kaharski, a insider for the Titans, that Rand Carthen did not have the best post-game routine. Now, Kaharski did also say that he tried to not let his bias get in the way because he never liked Rand Carthen, so that could be a part of his reporting too. But an insider saying that Rand Carthen was lazy, backing up everything that ownership has said, and Chad Brinker as well, that's something that we can't scoff at. And we've got to seriously take a look at that and think about it and maybe be like, hey, maybe he just wasn't the biggest worker. So that's the end of that section. Rand Carthen being fired, that's the reasons that could be a fine thing. Do I think it's a good thing? I don't know. But do I think that there are ideas of why he could have been fired? Yes, 100%. There's always some type of reason outside of performance, usually in the NFL. Well, that's obviously a part of it, but there are other parts and deeper layers to it. Anyway, basically, Chad Brinker is the GM of this football team. There's no hiding that at this point. Whoever gets hired as the GM is the glorified assistant GM. Hold on. Mouth was a little dry. Sorry. Obviously, whoever gets hired as GM is probably going to be an assistant to Chad Brinker, and they're going to answer to Chad Brinker, and he's basically going to be the GM. Don't understand why he wasn't hired as GM. Kaharski, again, also made an article of why he's not the GM. There's going to be a lot of Kaharski referencing because he's been one of the more vocal people today about candidates and who is doing what and what is going on with the power structure in the Tennessee Titans organization. But still, we got to move on from that, and we got to talk about Chad Brinker, okay? What does he bring to the table? Well, first off, this is the Chad Brinker era now. He basically sat in the background, watched Mike Vrabel basically destroy himself. He watched Rand Carthen kind of destroy himself. I mean, or he saw Amy Armstrong just lose patience with Rand Carthen. He looked in the background, and now he's pouncing on the job of face of the Tennessee Titans, basically. So it's obvious that he is doing what everybody, or maybe not what everybody, but what Amy Armstrong wants him to do, taking over this organization and being the leader of this. Now, there's been a lot of controversy around this of is he actually any good, or is he just really well off with Amy Armstrong? I'm not too sure, but we got to bring up some positives. First off, he was an assistant of director pro scouting for the Green Bay Packers and was also a salary cap analyst. So the definition of a assistant director of pro scouting is basically he pulls together all the information on specific players, including information from the scouts and the coaches, and basically decides, is this dude worth drafting? So we got to take a look at this. This is the stuff. This was one of the things that Carthen was thought of doing really great at, was his drafting ability. So what if Chad Brinker was the brains behind that? What if he was the one taking all of the thoughts of the scouts and the coaches, putting them together and being like, hey, this is who we should draft? And he suggested that to Rand Carthen, and Rand Carthen listened. Because, again, he was all about collaboration. Let's be real. Even if he was fired, he definitely was about collaboration. So he listened, He looks at the film, he picked them, whatever. So, is that a possibility that he was definitely, he was basically the first person that Carthen would go to for draft analysis? Potentially. Like, again, we're trying to think positive here, okay? So, like, maybe he was the mastermind behind the drafts. And then you're just like, okay, Micah, but what about his handling of contracts, Ran Carthen's? I mean, like, if you are really like nitty gritty with the Tennessee Titans, you know that one of the best things that Ran Carthen did for this team in his tenure was his contracts. Well, let's take a look at his other job description. He was the salary cap analyst. The definition of this is basically in charge of the contracts. So like him making a contract with somebody else was absolutely like huge in this last free agency cycle. Calvin Ridley, his contract got increasingly more expensive as the years went on. Same thing with Lloyd Cushenberry, similar thing with L'Jarius Sneed. Like all of these people, their contracts were basically based off of, okay, they're going to start out cheap and then they're going to get more and more expensive, which has led to the Titans having $65 million in cap space this offseason. So whenever we take a look at that, maybe that means that he was also in charge of the salary cap. Maybe he was also in charge of like, hey, here's how you should, maybe this is how you should manage the contract structure, Ran. Like, there's potential that was a big part of it. Like, who knows, honestly? Like, these are his two biggest jobs, and they were two things that Ran Carthen was best at. Or maybe it wasn't Ran Carthen, and it was really Chad Brinker that was in charge of these things. Again, I could be completely wrong about this, but there is definitely potential for something like that to have happened. Who knows, okay? But anywho, we gotta also talk about the fact he does have respect around the league. He's a well-respected name from other, like, people across the league. Now, could he be not as respected now because of how the Carthen situation went down and how basically he's going to have all power over the team? Maybe. He might genuinely lose a lot of respect for what has gone down in his Tennessee Titans tenure. But we got to talk about this. He has been documented from a lot of people, again, to have a lot of respect, but specifically LaFleur said that he would 100% take the opportunity to work with this dude if he got the chance to. No, Matt LaFleur's not going to become the head coach of the Tennessee Titans. I think that's obvious enough, but I just want to clarify for some people that are out there thinking, is he saying that Matt LaFleur might get hired away? No, not one bit. That's not what I'm thinking of for a second. I do not think that this dude will be able to hire away Matt LaFleur. Obviously, nobody will for the head coaching situation, especially if Callahan gets fired after next year, which would be stupid. But anyway, again, he's well respected around the league, so maybe, just maybe, he has that respect for a reason. Just saying. Okay, that's the defense that I have for Chad Brinker basically being in charge of this whole operation. So let's talk about the single GM candidate that has come out of today. There's been only one person that a Titans insider specifically has said, yeah, he's definitely going to be seriously considered for the job, and he's probably who Chad Brinker's top target will be. And I've also heard that potentially the Lions assistant GM could also end up coming here, but that's neither here nor there. I don't think he'll want to go from assistant general manager of the Lions to assistant general manager of the Titans, basically. But here is the report. Paul Kaharski said that John Eric Sullivan, he is the current vice president of player personnel for the Green Bay Packers. This dude has worked with him for 12 years. They worked together for 12 years and apparently have a pretty good relationship. Sorry, not 12 years, 13 years. Apparently they have a pretty good relationship. Now, the definition of this job is he oversees the process of evaluating, scouting, and recruiting players for the team. Basically, very charismatic dude. Kind of similar to what Ran Carthen was. But anyway, getting out of the way, this to me is the only hope that we don't have inner conflict in the front office, if there isn't already. Like, we need somebody that, again, I hate that I'm using this word, but collaborates with Chad Brinker, because, like, if there is no collaboration between those two, because it's basically Chad Brinker's GM, whoever he brings in as GM is assistant GM. I feel like that's been made obvious today. But those two need to be able to mesh together and be a great unit in the front office. Again, I don't know if I trust it, but I'm still going to get behind it if it does happen. And honestly, the only reason that I say this is because I feel like that, if we hire somebody else, there's going to be a lot of conflict there because they'll be like, wait, I was brought here to be a GM. Why on earth am I, being treated like the assistant GM? Then conflicts will happen, and then we'll have another GM fired, which would be horrible. We obviously don't want that to happen. But we got to talk about the fact that we need somebody who can collaborate with Chad Brinker, which I know you don't like it. I don't like it, but it's true. Okay? And I think that's the only way that this whole era just smooths over and becomes better for the Tennessee Titans. Again, trying to bring some positive energies. Anyway, that's today's episode. I have Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok all under the Titans Rundown. I also have the Vols Rundown, my new YouTube channel about the Tennessee Volunteers. So if y'all want to go check that out, I'll leave it in the description too. You'll probably see me in a lot more of a positive light, not even in a forced positive light, but just in general more positive about a football and basketball and baseball team and women's basketball team in general. So anyway, that's going to do it all for me. This has been a rundown of your Tennessee Titans. I love y'all, and tighten up.